So today's topic is biomolecules. So biomolecules are made of living things and are essential for performing life functions in and among cells. The function of a biomolecule is determined by the structure, and if the structure is disrupted, the biomolecule cannot function anymore. And biomolecules are made up of building blocks, which primarily consist of monomers and polymers. Polymers are small molecules that can be chemically combined by covalent bonds to form larger molecules, polymers. So polymers are basically a group of monomers linked together, and that bigger molecule is a polymer. So polymerization is the process of making a polymer, which we just talked about. And we have two other processes like dehydration synthesis and hydrolysis. So dehydration synthesis is when two monomers come together and a water molecule is released. Hydrolysis is when a water molecule is added to a polymer and that polymer breaks apart. And to see this in greater detail, I have this little diagram. So this is hydrolysis. A polymer plus water makes up these two monomers. So this polymer breaks down into glucose and fructose. And this is dehydration synthesis, when these come together and they release water, and when they come together they obviously make this bigger polymer. As for polymerization, we can see this here where we have two glucoses that will come together to make a lactose. So a polymer is made out of two monomers coming together. So these four biomolecules are made up of monomers and polymers as well. Carbs are made of monosaccharides, which come together to form polysaccharides. Lipids are made up of fatty acids, which come together to form triglycerides or triglycerides, but basically phospholipids. Phospholipids is the main one that you would have to remember. Protein comes together by amino acids, and these amino acids come together to form a polypeptide chain, which is a protein. Nucleic acids are made of nucleotides, and these nucleotides come together to form DNA and RNA, which is a nucleic acid. This monomer makes this polymer, which is this type of biomolecule. Here are the four main biomolecules that we talked about, and here's a chart that gives more details about the monomers, the structure, the polymers, the elements that make up that biomolecule, and the functions of the biomolecule. So carbs, we've already talked about the monomers and the polymers, so I won't talk about that in a lot of detail, but let's start off with carbs. So carbs, their structure is in rings, always have carbon joining the points together. And the elements that make up carbs are carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, and the function of carbs is to store energy. But remember, it's short-term storage. Lipids are made of fatty acids, which is a monomer, and the structure of lipids are chains. So this is one chain, this is two chain, this is three chain. In the chains, when the chains are normal, well, when they look normal to us like these, then they're saturated. And when usually it's supposed to go like this and continue on, but no, this one skips one and keeps going on. This is unsaturated. So the saturated chains are liquid lipids like olive oil, and the unsaturated chains are solid fats like animal fat, something that's a fat that stays solid at room temperature, and each intersection, like the carbs above, intersect with carbon at every point. Polyglycerides, but we also have phospholipids, which will be mainly talked about. And side note, they're used to make cell membranes at a cellular level. The elements that make up lipids are the same as those of carbs: carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. And the function of lipids is to act as an insulator for long-term energy storage, and is to make up cell membranes on a cellular level. As for proteins are made of the monomer amino acids, and their structure looks something like this, where they have oxygen, OH, NH2. But over here, this is special because this R with the star on it acts like a variable, because it gives the amino acid specification. Whatever type of R there is, it will make it unique. It'll give it a different identity. So think of this as like a variable that has not been set in stone. And ribosomes are the ones that come together to make proteins. So ribosomes put together these amino acids to make proteins. And the polymer is polypeptide or polypeptide chain. There are two different ways to say it, but they're the same thing. These two refer to the same thing. But in a later video, when we go more into it, I'll explain you the significance of the name, because the name itself has a meaning that actually makes it easier for you to remember a certain process. The elements that make up proteins are carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen, and also sulfur sometimes. The function of proteins is basically to produce an action in our body. So proteins are responsible for all the actions that are being done in the body. If I want to move my finger, it's because of a protein. If I'm digesting my food, it's because of a protein. So all these actions that our body does are because of proteins. And proteins can also be used as an energy source, but they produce ketones. Ketone is a toxin that the body can't break down easily, and it builds up in the body. So what happens is, when protein is used as an energy source, it produces ketones, and that ketones goes to the liver, and in the liver, till a certain amount, the liver will be able to break it down and repurpose it. But after a certain point, the liver can't store it anymore, so it starts building up in the kidney. And then in the kidney, it'll start to build up there as well, and because it can't filter it anymore, and then it'll start building up in the body as well. So while protein can be used as an energy source, it is not ideal. Then we have nucleic acids. As for the diagram, we'll delve more onto the structure of nucleic acids later in a different video, because it makes more sense for me to describe it there. But basically, it's a structure of DNA and RNA. You could think of that, and I'll talk more on that later. There'll be a whole separate video on this, so I'll link that in the description. But don't focus on the structure of nucleic acids. But just know that the nucleic acids are your DNA and RNA. As for the composition of nucleic acids, it's basically of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphorus. The function of nucleic acids is to store genetic information. So this is biomolecules for you. We talked about what a biomolecule is, what makes up a biomolecule, the types of biomolecules, their specifications, and then I also explained to you a few processes as well. And I hope this helps you a lot. If you have any questions, please comment down below. And please subscribe and like the video. And I'll get back to you with more interesting content and material.